right? It's just one of the problems today with our society and the way that the state has intervened, it is actually come between people in establishing strong relationships,
Yep.
and it's made it a net benefit to be able to get alimony and child custody payments and whatever, rather than having the person be an equal parent. And that was one of the big objections with this equal parenting legislation that I tried to push for as well when I was representing them, is that if you have equal parenting, I actually had this. I'll tell you something. I had this conversation with a lawyer. I had a custody dispute, like I say, with one of my kids, and I remember saying to the lawyer, he says, "Well, what do you want?" I said, "I want equal parenting." I said, "I want equal time and equal parenting, and that's what I want." I said, "I'm not a bad guy. You have nothing to say against me. I want to be equal." He says, "We can't do that." I said, "Why?"
Wow.
I said, "Why?" He says, "Because then there won't be any money exchanged."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
At least
So
he was honest to you. Wow.
He was, yeah. He basically said, we want the money. We want the money. Right? And that's what it is. That's basically what it is. So all these feminists who talk about equality and all this custody, no, and there's a scam in it, because the lawyers it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
It's in the billions and billions. In the U.S., maybe $1 trillion, because the market is so much bigger, right? I mean, these guys, but and men are always, they want to be the white knight and the hero, and they don't realize that you're not being a white knight to your kid. If you really want to be a white knight to somebody, you think about your child.
Yeah.
You think about spending time with that kid. And why do we have these kids today who don't want to have children? I mean, the reason they don't want to have children is because their family was screwed up, and they saw mom hates dad and dad hates mom, and they had some bitter custody dispute or something, and they've never forgotten it their whole life. So somehow the kid always gets caught in the middle, and he just says, I mean, you imagine what a conflict that is in your mind. Like, I love my mom, I love my dad, but they both are, they're both fighting
or
each other.
even worse, the parents could take it out on the kid. Oh no, the
do
parents
that
are
too.
done fighting each other, so they yell at the kid for no reason, or the parent or it gets ugly. They see the mom hit the dad, or they see the dad hit the mom. So you don't blame them. It's like, it's PTSD. It's like a whole generation of people live in PTSD from broken families.
Yeah. It's what I call, like I said, a daycare generation. And then they get raised by people who don't give them any guidance, who don't really have any love or compassion for them.
Talking about daycare, man, I'll tell you a story. Daycare. When I was in Evanston, my dad worked at the hospital in Evanston, and both my parents were working because they were poor at the time, because it was hard. It was the start of two salary system, and they were working, so they sent me to daycare. Part of it, I wanted to go to daycare because I saw all these kids in daycare. I was like, oh, I get to hang out with kids. But damn, the daycare was horrible. Like I remember the teacher one time got mad and like dragged a kid into the corner. Like she literally dragged the kid, and this was one of the best daycares. And then I didn't speak English. I just came from China. So they never tried to teach me English. There's one daycare teacher who really tried, but the other ones there's just one lady who just laughed at me all the time. And this was one of the best daycares in Evanston.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm traumatized by it. There's one guy, he knew I didn't speak English. He knew I didn't like taking a nap. So he'd pull we all slept with our blankets. Right? He'd pull me close to him. So that way it's like I was forced to sleep next to him because he didn't want me just goofing off. And it's like, why am I sleeping next to this fucker who I don't know? I remember his name too. I think his name was Harvey, that fucking Harvey bastard. Hey, like Harvey Weinstein, but why is everyone named Harvey weird? I don't know. But the guy's name was Harvey. He kind of had that big fat white guy look like Harvey Weinstein. And he would always just pull me close. And so that way, I would be afraid to goof off when everyone was napping. But it's you don't do that to a 4-year-old kid. I was 3 actually. I was 4. I don't remember, but I just remember him pulled me over.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best daycares. It was put on by the Evanston Hospital, and there were kids crying all the time. I want my mommy. I remember that was the first phrase in English I learned. I want my mommy, because I heard all the other kids say that every day. I want my mommy.
Oh man, that's heartbreaking. That's so heartbreaking.
And one of the best daycares in Evanston.
Yeah. So let's take a step back. So why did people vote for Trump? Because they're pissed off at doing shit like that to their kids and they decide, I don't want to have any kids. Like that's probably why you're in this MGTOW thing. You're thinking, if I got to put my kid in daycare, like that's not right. I mean, you've been through this shit, right? And I find a lot of these kids who've been through that, and there's a certain nihilism that they've also developed as well, because it's the love of a mother, man. Like, I mean, when I was a kid, my mother was there. We had dinners always ready, and I mean, it was the end of that let's call it the great society of Western society. You know, the one that everybody aspires to, that doesn't exist anymore today. But that great Western society, and I feel fortunate because I was the end of the baby boom generation when you could actually afford to do that. And we didn't live like kings, okay? In some ways, there was certain deprivations financially because we didn't have a lot of money. But that love and that care, and everything I know about cooking today, my wife says to me, like, I could cook better than her, quite frankly. but I cook Western food and she cooks Eastern food. So we're kind of,
it's a good compliment.
It's a good compliment. I don't mind. You know what? I prefer the Asian food, because at my age, you got to watch your blood pressure and things like that. And their food is healthier. It's more holistic. So it's a better food for me. Western food, a lot of it is very heavy. But I mean, to get back, I learned how to cook from my mother. So once in a while, I do some cooking around the house. Although, truth be known, my wife does most of it. But I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, you know, a lot of men you see, middle-aged men who've been through this, former MGTOWs or whatever, they often get involved with Asian women. You see, well, why are there so many Asian women with white guys? Because the white guys, first of all, they have economic advantage because they're from a Western country. So the Asian women see that. I mean, and they want to have children. They want to be with someone who has some money.
The resources.
The resources. I mean, that's true. That part of a MGTOW thing is true. But the other side of this, what's her motivation? I mean, she wants to have family and she wants to provide for the kids, and which is his kids also. It's, you know, and so you get this. What I found is the family values are there. I have a hard time to trust Western women. I mean, because you always think that divorce is on the tip of their tongue, right? Anytime you're going to have an argument, this woman's going to say to you, "I want a divorce," like, or she's going to accuse me of something. She knows how to play the system now, and she has a financial incentive put in there by the state. And this is one of the reasons I believe in libertarianism. Is because the government is getting right in there, right into your family bed with you, and basically involving themselves in your most personal life and with regards to your children. And now with the daycare thing, and then they go into the school system. These kids have not been given the guidance. I mean, I grew up with stories from my mother about her childhood and the experiences that she had, and you know, it's and values and how to do the right thing. And you know, some of them were religious values, some were not. It was just, you know, you don't treat people that way, you be nice to people, you know, you don't cheat and steal from people. These were the values that I was raised with as a child, and these are the values that come from mom. And the woman's job is the most critical job in the world. I mean, feminism has really sold out womanhood, because being a mom, raising the next generation, making the world perhaps a little better with your own little bit, which you're never going to be able to do in a job, by, you know, what you will be able to do by raising a couple of good kids and teaching them the skills that they're going to need to survive and go out in the world. That was the woman's role, and it's been degraded. I mean, men's job was never so good. You know, we just went out in the field. I mean, that's where it started, right? In the old agricultural days, the guy was out in the field, and I mean, my mother, I'm going to tell you something. She was really from the old school. She was raised in the 30s. She could cook and bake anything, like anything from scratch, man. I mean, my mother's idea of an insult on another woman was basically to say she cooks from a recipe book. You know?
That's amazing.
How ironic is that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everybody today cooks from a recipe book or a box, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the old school, and I find it I find here in Canada, because we're an immigrant nation, just like the United States, a lot of people don't realize that we had those Asian values. Asia has retained them, and keep them, man, keep them. Because quite frankly, I mean, we've got a son who's part Asian, and my wife and I have had conversations. I said, you know what? If we could afford it, I'd rather go raise my son in your country. I really want my son to be raised with proper family values, and to be here, where you have to have the 2-income family in order to strive. You know, it's the economic situation has become that difficult. Now, one of the things that I put in my book about this, I'm trying to ease this up. because if you look at our economy is changing. Okay, so in the Libertarian Charter, I put this in that the economy is changing, and I've seen one of the things I've done is not only criticism, but I've also got reform. We've been talking about some of the social issues, but so just like the legal issue, I brought up another example of, you see, if you look at the way the banking system operates, people think that the bank has money. Okay, a lot of people think, and I was raised with that pile of BS.
Yeah,
that
of course.
Somebody puts savings in the bank, and person B goes to the bank, and he borrows those savings from the bank, and the bank makes its money from the difference, the interest charge between what they gave this guy and what they gave that guy.
Yeah.
Total fictitious lie.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
I took the securities course right years ago, and I also I've read a lot, like John Kenneth Galbraith was one of my favorites. Okay, when I was younger, and I've read a number of books on economics, and like, you're absolutely right. That's not how it works. They basically, what the bank does is the bank goes to the federal bank, and the Federal Reserve or what have you in the United States, and they get the money from there. And the money from there. They get,
and then you can talk about fractional reserve banking. Basically, they're only required by law to keep a very small percentage of the money that people think is stored, and then all the rest they can loan it out. That's why bank panics happen, because everyone tries to withdraw their money thinking the bank has it, and the bank doesn't, because they're only legally required. Let's just throw out a figure. They're only required to keep 2% of whatever is stored in the bank, and they loan it out. That's how they quote unquote create wealth, right? Because
generally 5 to 10%
stored, and then they're loaning it out, so they're quote unquote creating wealth, but it's fake wealth.
That's right. That's right. Well, it's economic. It's growing the money supply with economic growth as well. So there is a purpose to it, to put money into circulation. Okay, which is what they're doing. They're creating new money by writing script. But the interesting point about that is I got an interesting question for you. Why is the bank getting money free from the government, and yet the government's paying interest on that money?
I have no idea. Tell me.
I don't know either. But I'll tell you one thing: a lot of the social corruption that goes on, the political corruption, I'm sure it comes from there, because somebody's making a shitload of money.
Yeah.
In the banking industry, somebody's making piles, like big piles, man.
That's why it's lucrative to go into finance, because they're literally I'm not gonna give away. But he was telling me he manages the portfolios of banks, so he's like the next level, right? He's the one that manages the assets and liabilities of banks, and he's telling me, yeah, we're due for another bubble burst soon. He was telling me that. I'm like, fuck. I guess I'm not gonna do anything real estate wise this year, or cryptocurrency wise, or anything.
Okay. So you understand how money goes into circulation. It's basically the government writes a script, and it goes to the bank, and then the bank, it's all the money is just written on paper. Here's your mortgage. Now you have to pay the interest on that money. You had to give all the security. You as the individual, you're giving everything. These guys behind you who got the money, who loaned it to you, they gave nothing. They contributed nothing to this process. Absolutely nothing. Even if it's fake on paper, where, oh, you're going to give us a reserve note or whatever, right? It's all fake. Yeah, it's all fake. It doesn't exist.
It's called rent seeking in economics. They call it rent seeking. It's all these people that don't add value, but they still make money.
Yeah. Well, my idea in that was, I mean, and it's really terrible. Like, you look at the housing crisis. We were talking about the homelessness in Los Angeles that you have driven by today, and all the people in the tent city.
Walk by. I don't have a car. I walk by the homeless.
Oh, well, okay, you walk by it. Well, I mean, they're not bad people, because obviously you feel a certain sense of security in walking by, that you're not going to be attacked or something.
Oh no, I'm just stupid. I don't have my frontal lobe balance yet. What I was trying to find the hotel where, like, that lady died in the water tank, and there was that crazy camera footage of her. Like, it looked like she saw a ghost or something. So I was trying to find the hotel. So I was doing some stupid stuff, and I took a picture of the hotel. It's completely abandoned. They're renovating. It's really creepy. That's why I was walking by that area. I was being stupid.
I think that lady was from Canada. She was from Vancouver.
Yeah, she's a Canadian Chinese person, Eliza Lam. So, like, all of China knows about it. They're like, what the fuck? Yeah. So they're like, yeah, LA's a crazy. They all know LA from her death.
But let me just step back to what we were talking about the economic thing. Okay, and the book with, that's one thing I put in, like, the Libertarian Charter, because it's a charter as in project management. In project management, when we have a proposal how to evolve things. We make it into a charter. Actually, you'll notice that all the paragraphs are numbered as well, just like a charter. I actually started it as a charter, and then it evolved into a book, and I tried to make it more readable, and I had to amend it, so it's not really like a project charter with subgroups and so forth. So, but it's there, right? All the information is there. It's just all put out, and like all of the things that would open up are already open for you, so you can follow it through. But getting back to the banking system, why are we doing that? Why are we not providing interest-free mortgage loans? I mean, I know that interest is deductible on mortgages in the United States, for example, but I mean, why not also make these mortgages suspendable? Why not make a mortgage a lifetime, like a grant from the government? So let's say you want to buy a house. Let's say Jerry wants to buy a house. So the government goes and you just nationalize the whole thing. It's already nationalized anyhow. It's all BS. You just got different people who are making profit off of this, and they call it Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo. But they're all the same club, right? They're all getting the same deal from the central bank. I mean, they're basically getting money for nothing. Okay. With no security, nothing. Where's their security? I put my security on. Where's the bank's security? They don't have any security, right? But the poor little guy's got to do that. He's got to bust his ass for 30 years and pay the thing off 4 times over. 300 to 400% mortgage. I mean, I used to see this. I used to own a bunch of rental properties, okay? And I used to look at these amortization schedules on the property, and I'd say, I'm making a $19 payment, $1,900 payment, yeah. And like $90 is going for principal, and all the rest is interest, right? Yeah. So it's like, this is insane. Look at all that interest money. And that's why you end up paying a mortgage for life. I mean, you can pay the typical mortgage off in 25% of the time that it's amortized in. Okay, so you can reduce the duration by 75%. And then the other thing is, if I'm providing you with a suspendable mortgage, so let's say, okay, I was going to get to that. Let's say you wanted to buy a condo under my idea, my new economic strategy, because we're going to have to do something. People are going to have to be given a guaranteed minimum income or something in the economy. But I want people to be independent. I don't want them to be sucking off the government tip, on and on and on. I want to have people truly independent and libertarian. So basically, okay, so you get this mortgage. Everyone can get a mortgage. It's guaranteed for life. It's constitutional. It's written in your constitution for your country that everyone's entitled to one interest-free mortgage from the government. So you get this thing. It's suspendable. So let's say Jerry goes there and he buys a house, and it's as much as he can afford for his salary. Okay, and it's the nicest house that you can get, and you're very happy with it. And now you want to raise a family. Well, you're going to raise a family. It's going to cost you money. So you may have, for example, you may need to take your kids you want to put your kids in a school. Now, all schools would be similar to a charter school type of system, okay? But you'd also be considered a shareholder of the state, okay? So as you're a member of the country, you're also a shareholder. I mean, countries make tremendous money from royalties, eh? Like they sell resources, mineral rights, and that. They make trillions and trillions of dollars off of this, okay? So that money would be like a shareholder's distribution. Everybody would be considered a shareholder of the nation. You're a member of the nation, okay, as a citizen of the nation. So you would also have a certain amount of money that you would get from the government as this for your education of your kids and for your medical services. And I would also set up a system. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's keep it with, there's a bunch of systems that I set up here. So your mortgage would be suspendable. You could suspend your mortgage because you have children, because you have a lot of expenses. Okay.
Yeah.
Basically means you wouldn't suspend. You would just suspend the payments. Okay. So you suspend the payments because you have kids. You have a lot of high expenses. Now, for most people, right away, you're talking. Well, it's supposed to be 30 to 45% when I studied mortgage financing, but some people are 50% and more today, right? So you'd have this mortgage, and it would be basically a lifetime type of loan, okay? And you could suspend it. That's the big thing. It's not that no interest is because the government's already putting the money out. They're already doing this, but the guy who's getting the deal is the banking community. So the second part of this, because my ideology is libertarian. I want you to have a choice in everything, and I want you to be responsible for your life, and I want you to be responsible for your kids. And I don't want you to go to a state education system where the government's going to tell you and is going to indoctrinate your kids in socialism, social Marxism, or any other philosophy, be it religious or otherwise. I want, as the parent, and you as the parent, should have the right to select where you want to put your kid and what kind of education you want them to have. So you'd have something similar to a charter school, and you'd have a certain amount of money from your shares, let's say in the state, and the shares profit. or the state's profit, and you would have this to your credit that you could apply for education, that you could apply for medical services. And then we would have a system of trusts. Now, let me tell you something. You look at these Democrats, a lot of them. If you look at who's that guy there? The guy that ran up against Hillary Clinton, or Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, right?
Sanders,
Now,
yeah.
Sanders, yeah. And even Clinton in his early days, her husband, they talk about all this, public health care, and they're going to bring that into the American system, which we already have in Canada, by the way, which it's not such a great system. It's kind of so. But I mean, at least you got coverage, right? No one's going to throw you out on the street and say you got no coverage, right? So in an emergency, you don't sweat that one. But you could have a system where, why don't these left-wing guys who are always criticizing the system, where's their solution? I would like to see some of these guys, set up a system. I mean, let's put it to you this way. Let's say I'm I don't know, I won't use anybody's name, but let's say I'm a left-wing guy, and I believe in socialized medicine, and I think I can come up with a great little socialized system that's going to give everybody free health care. Okay? Well, it wouldn't be free, because first of all, you start off with no taxes, right? I kind of missed that point. You eliminate all taxes. But what you're going to do after that, with the no tax situation, is you're going to select what programs you want. Okay. And then that's going to be applied to your taxes. But then you're going to have trusts. You're going to make it eligible that you could set up a trust. You just have to get a government approval for it after it's set up. There would be, say, a healthcare system. So let's say I devise the perfect little healthcare system, and the premium is going to be I'm going to calculate it based on a large number of people subscribing. So we're going to have 5 million subscribers, let's say, like something like the size of maybe Sweden or something like that, right? If only 5 million people subscribe to this, I can give everybody free healthcare because everybody's paying into it. Not everybody's going to use it at the same time, right? And so you set this thing up and you have your subscription basis, and people choose that one. And if you're going to choose that program, you're going to pay, I don't know, say $100 a month or whatever, right? Or maybe more. 600, 700 a month, whatever it's going to be, but you're not paying any taxes. And if you have a lot of kids and you're having economic problems, you're never going to lose your home, because you have a thing that, homes are guaranteed. Because I don't think it's right in a society with this much money floating around that people end up living on the streets. That's scandalous, man. That's really scandalous. I mean, you've got people making so much money off of the government trough. I mean, the whole banking system makes money off the government trough. And I think John Kenneth Galbraith said it best when he said that money, the creation of money is so amazing that something to the effect that the mind is dumbfounded. Like you look at it, if you really understand how the government creates money, what? Really? I'm gonna give you another example. Okay, it sounds a little bit airy-fairy in some regards. Prior to 1971 here in Canada, okay, we didn't have a central banking system set up. And then they joined the OECD or something. Okay, government joined us. And we had to control our banking system, because before that, the government used 30% of the money that it produced and put into the system for building hospitals, schools, and highways and bridges. It was the most prosperous time and the greatest economic growth in the country's history. And they also paid off the debt from the Second World War. Okay, which we'd already been in for.
Interesting.
Well, they took 30% of the money, 30% of the money that the government put into circulation from the central bank, because your economy's growing, right? You're always producing new things, new housing, new products. So everything is growing like a balloon. So you have to keep feeding it with more air, and more air and more oxygen is money, right? So they do that in the form of loans, because if there's more air going out, then people have more money to buy houses and buy things, right? So that money is there. It's available. I mean, they 30%, and then they stop doing it, and then all of a sudden they start. I mean, all money now is created from debt. It's all debt. They write federal bonds and so forth, and they put that into circulation. You know, so the system is skewed. I mean, 1%. Well, I mean, I found when I was reading Galbraith, he was saying that in his book, The Age of Uncertainty. It's one of the things I mentioned in my book. Is that he said eventually what's going to happen with a free enterprise system is that the entire system is going to consolidate into a few major corporations that are going to own everything.
Oh man.
Because that's what you have now. You have like
Yeah.
six corporations that control the media in the United States. 6, man. You have 6 guys in a room, and they can control all the information you get out there. I mean, prior to the advent of the internet.
Yeah.
And you can see the revolution that's happened with the internet, because people have started looking at this thing, and you look at the Arab Spring and things like that, and I think that's when the powers that be sort of realized, whoa, this thing is dangerous.
Yeah.
And all those tweets out, today's the protest day, and they all went out there and went on a protest, right?
Exactly.
Until you had the government overthrown in Tunisia and in Egypt, and it ran across the Middle East like fire.
Yeah. Wow. So,
okay.
Are you going to have any other books come out, or is the Libertarian Charter going to be your book for a while?
It's going to be my book for a while, but I definitely would, we'll see how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
And if people take to my libertarian perspective, because I do think it's libertarian. The main reason it's libertarian is it's constitutional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're setting up a pragmatic system, and the same thing like the United States, right? The United States was founded on libertarianism, and the libertarianism was the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
And that's
negative rights, as they called it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's become perverted, right?
Oh, of course. Now it's positive rights. It used to be the Constitution was about what the government can't do. Everything else, it's like, okay, everything else people just had the right to. But then they started specifically laying out everything that people could do.
Yeah, and then they also start to get involved in people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you could get into controversial things like abortion, which is a pretty big one out there. But I mean, if I really look at that, I look at that as a libertarian and say, well, what's the issue here? If somebody wants to do it, I mean, okay, after birth, that's a different story. But say the first trimester, that kind of thing, we don't really know where human life begins. But the other thing is, if someone who's religious, if they believe it starts at inception, then that's their right to believe that. But it's not your right, as in a communist state or any other kind of state, to impose your perspective on me or my family. And I'm not endorsing one position or the other, but I am saying that people have rights to make certain decisions in their life, just as you have a right to raise your children, as long as you're not abusing or mistreating them, to raise your children with the values, with the culture that you want to raise your children with. To have your children go to certain kinds of schools, because these are the things that, in your experience in life, you've learned are the best. Because you have to start off with something, okay?